Where I grew up, there lived several famous actors that you may have heard of. Not superstar famous, but very well known. Mary Beth Hurt, Susan Day of the Partridge Family, Vanessa Williams, and Alan Arkin, whose son was in my 4th grade class. Alan Arkin, who you may know best from playing the grandpa in Little Miss Sunshine, it was announced, would be coming to visit our 4th grade class and speak to us. While we had a general sense that this was something important, as our mothers were very excited for us, we didn't quite understand who he was. In order to prep for his visit, they showed our class the 1966 movie, "The Russians Are Coming, the Russians Are Coming." The movie was already 11 years old by the time I was in 4th grade. It was a goofy, wacky comedy about a Soviet submarine that gets stuck on a sandbar off the coast of New England. The movie, released at the height of the Cold War, was a critical and commercial success, but far over the head of a 4th grader. Regardless, I remember vividly the film and Mr. Arkin's visit. I still feel a warm feeling towards Alan Arkin when I see him in movies, and even his children who have gone on to commercial success as well. That Cold War farce flew over our 4th grade heads and planted in me and my classmates the confusing sentiment of needing to adore something, but not sure how or why. I've been thinking about my own 4th grade confusion because of something that is happening at Temple Beth El this January. We will be hosting a unit of Israeli soldiers. They're coming through a program called Peace of Mind, established shortly after the Second Lebanon War, when some soldiers complained they were suffering emotionally from experiences during the war. These original soldiers understood that they needed help, but didn't know how to go about receiving that help. They had not been clinically diagnosed with PTSD, so the Israeli government would not provide funding for therapy. The idea was to heal these young men together as a unit. It was both innovative and untraditional, but produced some very positive results. Since that first group in 2007, Peace of Mind has facilitated healing 60 units, which equates to roughly 1,000 people. The unit of 15 soldiers, some in the reserves and some still in the military, and 2 therapists will be coming here. They will be staying in our homes, worshiping with us, celebrating with us, enjoying the generosity of congregants who will donate sporting event tickets, therapeutic space, means, and resources for their time with us. The Jewish community they will visit in January of 2019 is very different than the Jewish community that existed when Israel was born in 1948. I worry there is a confused and unsure love that lies in our relationship with the Jewish state. It is a place our mothers told us to love, but ask yourself, do we? For many of us, Israel is a vague abstraction, colored blue and white, that has the kibbutz and the falafel and the army. An Israeli scholar who visited Temple Beth El this past spring was relieved that her first meal we served her, there was no falafel. Everywhere she had been in the States to speak, she was served Israeli food. She let us know happily as she dug into her pasta and tomato sauce. It has been that warm, fuzzy falafel feeling we have been taught. Connections like 4th grade me towards Alan Arkin, supposed to feel something, but confusion as to what exactly. The best illustration of this lies in the fable of the goat by Shai Agnon, the 20th century Israeli writer and Nobel Prize winner. The fable of the goat was written as a metaphor between Israelis and Jews around the world. It tells of an ill elderly man who was ordered by doctors to drink certain milk from a certain goat. The man's son ultimately found this elusive goat with milk that was sweeter than honey and had curative powers. The man urged his son to find out the place this goat was from and follow him. So the son tied a cord to the goat's tail. The goat went into a cave and walked for days and days. And when the son and the goat emerged from the cave, the young man saw lofty mountains, choicest fruit, a fountain of living waters. And the goat ate from carob fruits dripping with honey and drank from garden fountains. The son called to the people nearby, "Good people, tell me where I am, and what is the name of this place?" They answered him, "You are in the land of Israel." The son, drawn in by the land, wrote a note and tucked it behind the ear of the goat and sent it back to his father. When the man saw that the goat had returned without his son, he cried and wept and hit the goat so hard it died right there. And only then did he see the note that said, "Father, follow the goat back to the most marvelous land, and we will be together again." When he had read all this that his son had written, he clapped his hands to his head and cried. And since that time, the mouth of the cave has been hidden from the eye, and there is no longer a short way to the land of Israel. The writer Shai Agnon saw the chasm between the fledgling Jewish state and the Jews around the world, and that it would evolve to be like the distance between the man and his son. There was a place that was wonderful, and we were supposed to love and be nourished by it, but we were separated not only by miles, but experience and history. The story rung true for us as American Jews, as the notion of peoplehood on this soil was developing. American Jewish peoplehood meant that though we shared ancient traditions that were tribal and diverse, but American Jews, in addition, shared a unity like no other place in the world. We developed that cohesiveness and one voice for all intents and purposes. Once upon a time, we were a cohesive American community with intrinsic understandings of being tied to one another by something larger. This is what made Jews march for Soviet Jewry in the 1980s. And there was an unspoken understanding of not airing our dirty laundry in public, which is to say, don't fight politically with one another, and to support Israel. And alongside that Jewish peoplehood here in America flourished our American identity. We were welcome here. We were successful here. We were embraced here physically and metaphorically. And we were raised on a soil of a country that had the origins of democracy from its very first breath. We were not bogged down by notions of monarchy, hundreds or thousands of years old, but instead, as our Declaration of Independence declares, all men are created equal. The American Jew was reinforced by a national reality of power and strength, but also comfort and ease. And over time, that distance alluded to in the goat story did not disturb us here in America as a disinterested population that is not even bothered by the chasm and all that is in that chasm: Hebrew fluency, mandatory conscription, hostile enemies, and a divergent reality of daily life. Today, our Jewish world, in its embrace of freedom and choice, does not feel affinity with Israel in the same way we did for Israel's first 70 years. There is, in the words of Yehuda Kurtzer, an apathy among the broader American Jewish population as it drifts from the demands of particularistic Jewish identity, which for many decades reflexive attachment to Israel played a significant role. Just as no self-respecting fourth grader of today would sit through the 2-hour and 6-minute movie, The Russians Are Coming, and the 1977 idea of celebrity has fallen by the wayside in a day when any of us can become celebrities thanks to social media, we can no longer guarantee a unified American Jewish voice, nor should there be. We are a diverse community. Yes, some of us are apathetic, and some are angry, and some are informed by freedoms we have found on American soil to inform our love of Israel, even if it means disagreeing. And some are just fine with however things are. Some speak up. Speaking up about keeping promises for egalitarian prayer space at the Western Wall, or expressing disapproval of this summer's nation-state law, a new Israeli law that the Reform movement opposed because its harmful effect on Arab-Jewish relations in Israel, as well as its negative impact on the balance between the various core founding values of the State of Israel. We speak up so we can work to engage those marginalized in a relationship between Israel and diaspora Jewry. As Tal Becker said, not wanting to air one's dirty laundry in public should not be an excuse for, as it often becomes, not wanting to do the laundry. The dirty laundry metaphor too often becomes an instrument for silencing dissent and silencing activism to correct moral flaws. The choices and diversity and openness of the majority of the nature of the American Jewish non-Orthodox community, combined with the 6,580 miles from Boca Raton to Jerusalem, the cultural differences, and the just plain lack of knowledge and interest reinforces the distance between us. Even brave Israel has at times expressed fear at the growing independence and strength and acceptance at large of the American Jewish community. In September of 2011, the government of Israel launched a campaign of videos and billboards in cities with large concentrations of Israelis, including New York and Los Angeles. The messages included, before Hanukkah turns into Christmas, it's time to come back to Israel. And before Abba turns into Daddy, it's time to come back to Israel. Both communities, Jews in Israel and Jews in America, have an unprecedented strength, wealth, and vision, creating an independence from one another. We wonder, do we still need each other here or there? The billboard campaign was quickly shut down almost as soon as it was rolled out. And at the time, Ambassador Michael Oren issued a statement. The Ministry of Immigrant Absorption's campaign clearly did not take into account American Jewish sensibilities, and we regret any offense it caused. Prime Minister Netanyahu, once made aware of the campaign, ordered the videos immediately removed from YouTube, and he ordered the billboards removed as well. The Prime Minister, the statement went on, deeply values the American Jewish community and is committed to deepening ties between it and the Jewish state. But the Pandora's box had been opened. Both communities, Jews in Israel and Jews in America, have unprecedented strength, wealth, and vision, and an independence from one another like never before. In America, especially today's America, there is not a silencing. And that difference and that confident, independent, outstanding voice that sometimes even, yes, struggles and disagrees, that American Jewish voice is the ones that the soldiers coming to us need to hear. That confidence in Jews of America that created our past and the diversity and independence of the present can provide a model of strength to these soldiers. Our strength lies in the freedom we have to express those various attitudes, not just in the world at large, but right here in our synagogues. There is not that same freedom of religion for the more liberal branches of Judaism in Israel, as we know. We have that magical combination of this American reality of freedom of opportunity, speech, and worship, combined with safe space we will offer, both physically and metaphorically, to these soldiers to process. Israel may be the holy land for these soldiers in January, but Boca Raton will be their holy land. One of the most powerful phrases in the Torah is Chazak va'amatz, translated as be strong and courageous. The phrase is used by Moses in addressing Joshua to go forward in strength, as Moses will not be with him in the land of Israel as he battles our enemies. God reaffirms Chazak va'amatz, be strong and courageous, to Joshua as well. But then, after Torah ends, in the book of Joshua, something changes. Chazak va'amatz, be strong and courageous, that has been spoken by Moses and spoken by God, at the end of the first chapter of the book of Joshua, is spoken by the people to Joshua. They say to Joshua, their leader, their soldier, their warrior, who is going to fight many battles, Chazak va'amatz, be strong and courageous. It is the people that say it, and in saying it foster a love and devotion and connection that echoes the spirit of Moses and God, but it comes from the people. These soldiers that are coming to be with us through Peace of Mind had families, commanders, lieutenants, and a chief of staff, all who wished them courage and strength. But in order to begin their repair, to take the experience on the battlefield and let it inform their life off the battlefield, they need to hear "Be strong and courageous" from us. The strong and courageous we utter to them is not a physical strength and bravery. They have already exhibited that. They've seen the worst fighting and the ugliest of humanity and plumbed the darkest depths of difficulty. The physical battles they may have already fought, but that long road back to repair from those scars brings them here this January, and each of us has the potential to be part of providing that space for them to heal, far away from the young state where battles are fought just down the highway. Several years ago in Israel, I met with past Peace of Mind participants as we were first exploring the possibility of doing this program. These veteran soldiers had been medics who had not been able to save the life of a fellow soldier during the most recent Lebanon war. With the passage of several years, and more importantly, their unit away from Israel, they were able to learn the lingering blame, guilt, and shame that still existed even as the unit had gone back to their civilian lives. The anger, tears, and ultimately healing that came from this process created by Peace of Mind could only happen outside the land of Israel. There is a certain machismo in a society where nearly everyone serves in the military that does not provide a space for conversations on native soil. I understood this more completely several months ago after an incident at Temple Bethel. It was our privilege to host the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, here in May, celebrating Israel's 70th birthday. Because the evening's proceeds would go towards Peace of Mind, we brought in a young man who had just completed the program. I was excited to introduce him to the former Prime Minister, who had been Chief of Staff of the Israeli Army. But no sooner had I gotten an introduction out of my mouth with words of explanation about Peace of Mind, the former Prime Minister uttered the words "shtuyot" in Hebrew. Ridiculousness is a good translation. The Prime Minister's generation, that of Israel's first 70 years, is not yet ready to accept the vulnerability that comes with the after effects of war and rejects outright programs like Peace of Mind. And how can you blame them? The Holocaust hovers. The wars Israel fights are just a few miles away, and almost every parent there lives in dread and fear of that famous knock on the door from the commander with news your child has been killed. There is no room to admit hurt or pain or damage. Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik has explained, the concept of holiness is rooted in the bond between man and God that exists in the context of actual life. By letting these soldiers into our actual lives, we are doing holy work here in the midst of the freedom as American Jews and helping dissolve the distance between us. The Americanness of our Jewry is the very thing that can help the young soldiers learn from us and then help the Jewish homeland go forward to the next 70 years and beyond in chazak va'amatz, courage and strength. Shana Tova.